From the Chicago Sun-Times newsroom, I'm Natasha Korecki, and this is Off Message, our weekly political talk show. Joining me this week is Kate Grossman, our editorial writer. We have Pat Brady, former GOP chair, and Neil Steinberg, our esteemed columnist from the Chicago Sun-Times. This week, we are going to be talking about debates, the debate over debates, because we have two very high-profile races right now where the debate is becoming the news. First of all, we have Dick Durbin, who is being accused right now by Jim Oberweis of not debating enough. And then conversely, we have the incumbent, Pat Quinn, wanting to debate Rauner and saying that Bruce Rauner is not debating enough.
Mr. Rauner, why have you chosen to not come to the debate that NBC and the University of Chicago has asked you to? Would you please respond?
Why are we seeing Quinn wanting to do it and Durbin not wanting to do as many? What's your take on that, Pat?
My take is it says more about the campaign and how they view how they're doing, who wants the debates. When you're behind, you want debates. Governor Quinn wants a lot of debates because I think that they think they're 4 or 5 points behind now. Probably the same thing with candidate Oberweis, who is way down and needs to be on the stage to give him that heft with Senator Oberweis. So I think it says more about the campaigns itself than it does about whether they want to actually have the debates.
I'm in complete agreement with Pat. I should underscore that. I was going to say, the debates are traditionally seen as the weapon of the week. If Pat Quinn is pushing for debates, that means he's scared, rightly so. Oberweis, there's the complexity of the hypocrisy factor, and he didn't want to debate Doug Truax, and then suddenly now he's all into debates because he's so far behind Dick Durbin, who is not a scintillating speaker as it is. So that's two strikes.
But seriously, if there is a debate between these camps, do you think that Oberweis would out-debate
No,
Dick Durbin?
but his whole campaign, is on hubris, you know, so he thinks he's going to win this, and he thinks he's going to somehow best Dick Durbin, who's got the facts all in his pocket.
I mean, I don't even know if Oberweis really wants 7 debates, but he can make Durbin look like he's off, off in Washington and far from the people, and so he may not even benefit from the debates in the end, but he can score a few points in the moment.
I think there's a thin pie slice of people who want this. I mean, it can be interesting to get the issues out there for people who are completely snoozing, which is a good chunk of the electorate. It's a chance to see what this whole thing is about. But on the other hand, you can get in a lot of trouble by saying the wrong thing. You can have like a Reagan moment.
There you go again.
Where you say the right thing and suddenly people are like, oh my God, look, he's got a sense of humor.
So that's a good example of when a debate could actually make somebody.
Oh, sure. Sure.
I mean, I'm interested. Do you think that there have been times in the past where a debate, like the outcome of the debate, or the performance of the debate.
Story, we should probably say it's the famous Kennedy-Nixon debates where Nixon he had been sick and he didn't get as made up as Kennedy did, and he was sweaty and had a 5 o'clock shadow, and so people who listened on the radio supposedly thought Nixon had won because he was a smart guy, but people who watched TV, Jack Kennedy was so poised and handsome and not sweaty that everyone thought he won, and indeed it was a very thin race, and the general wisdom is that the debates, the first of which...
So not sweaty is one good point. I think back of Joe Walsh.
Health of the mother has become a tool for abortions for any time under any reason.
It went viral, and he later even conceded that it helped tank his chances.
I went back and looked at all the presidential numbers, and then even here, it doesn't typically move the scale at all. But just what you said, it's more important the spin afterwards. And Walsh got killed. Had nobody reported on that, or in the age we're in now, or you didn't have to spin people out, it probably wouldn't have had an effect. But that was the story, and that did hurt him a lot. So I think that's a great example. But to me, there's two things: the debate itself, which is pretty boring, and then people like me.
Do you remember Ross
that
Perot's vice president?
Who am I? Why am I here?
Perception of his performance was that he was not a person you wanted to hold a public office.
Well, that was Stockdale, and that's a great example I'm talking about.
Yeah.
The question, the answer, he meandered a bit, but the spin afterwards was he's some doddering old man that doesn't know what he's doing. And the point is, he got killed more after by the spin people that wanted to portray him as a not-a-touch guy, not qualified. But the answer in and of itself would have been not that. I watched it. It wasn't that bad.
I'm not a politician. Everybody knows that. So don't expect me to use the language of the Washington Insider.
Well, that's because, it gets spun afterwards, and the vast majority of people never watch the entire debate. They just see the brief clip, and without its context, he can look like a dithering guy.
The Dukakis moment.
If Kitty Dukakis were raped and murdered, would you favor an irrevocable death penalty for the killer?
No, I don't, Bernard, and I think you know that I've opposed the death penalty during all of my life.
And Dukakis had this technical, bloodless answer that made him seem like just some guy who was divorced from reality and had no heart, which was probably an accurate portrayal.
More recently in the presidential election, Romney and Obama. Remember the first debate, and everyone was expecting Obama to crush him, and
he was miserable.
He was absent.
In the middle of the Civil War, Abraham Lincoln said, let's help to finance the Transcontinental Railroad.
Didn't that briefly cause a
lot
of
changed the
excitement?
momentum in the other direction, and Obama clearly had to gather himself back up, and he performed much better in the second debate and sort of cut the wind out of those sails.
President, have you looked at your pension?
You know, I don't look at my pension. It's not as big as yours, so it doesn't take as long.
But I think here in Illinois, I mean, the issue with Pat Quinn and Bruce Rauner is because Bruce Rauner has such a tightly controlled, very disciplined campaign, and that's why Pat Quinn wants more debates, right? Not that he's going to have a dithering old man moment, but he wants him to say something, make a mistake, show that he doesn't understand government, something that can help Quinn advance his campaign. I mean, it's been one thing after another for Quinn, you know, in the news recently, and Quinn is looking for him to falter, and, you know, the debate really is an opportunity for him to falter.
So Rauner has not committed to WTTW or the NBC5, and, you know, Quinn's camp says it's disrespectful to the voters. We don't really know everything about Bruce Rauner. Should that be more of a reason for him to sit down and debate more often?
Well, but he's not the underdog. Because he's new at this, the risk of him messing up, you know, ad-libbing is far greater than Quinn, who has a lot of negatives, but saying dumb stuff off the cuff is not really one of them.
They typically do 3 big debates, and the TTW, the NBC, no disrespect to them, they do one up here, they do one central part of the state, and they do one downstate. And I think by the end of this,
well, come on, Bill Brady did 5 televised debates.
Bill Brady shouldn't have done 5 debates, it turned out, but that Elmhurst debate, I think, cost him dearly. And the last TTW
Well, do you think
debate,
that Bruce Rauner would do better if he debated more? Do you think that he could?
If I thought the debates could move the needle on anything, I have a ton of confidence in Bruce as a debater and a candidate and a guy that's really not going to say anything stupid. He's just pretty bright guy. But I'm not sure it moves the needle, and it's more of a media spin fest than it is substantive. I think.
Is it a media spin fest, though? Don't you think that there are certain populations that are going to watch Channel 7 every moment of it, are going to watch WTTW every moment of it, and want to know what these people are, what these guys are doing?
The question we're dancing around is what's the purpose of these debates? If you're coming from inside the camp, the purpose is to present your candidate, then Rauner has all the money he needs. He doesn't have to have a half-hour on TV time. He can buy his own and produce it. If the purpose
but it's unscripted,
right? If the purpose is to get to the heart of the candidates and the issues, then he should debate. And so I think as a voter, I want these debates, you know, separate from the spin, separate from the value, to see who these guys are when they're put on the spot like they're going to be if they get elected.
Well, maybe, too, it's even the format. They aren't real debates.
Well,
if you and I can have a debate here and yell at each other and be a real debate and you figure out the issues, but they're questions and they're...
That's the cowardice of the candidates, because they don't want to be cut on the spot. They don't want things, I mean, they want to sort of minimize their risk. They're betting, you know, they're spreading across the table in a bit.
Well, for instance, this week there were 2 events where both of the candidates were present. They were asked a series of questions, but they were separate. They weren't, you know, it was a forum. It wasn't a debate. Does that do as much of a service?
I mean, it provides some service. I mean, you know, there's sort of an assumption in all of this that the more is better. I actually think a smaller number of debates is better because they'll focus the public's attention. And honestly, like the average voter, I mean, 2 weeks before the election, maybe they're going to start paying attention, really.
All right. Well, good debate about the debates. Let's switch to quotes of the week. Why don't we start with you, Neil?
Yeah, I picked a debate-themed quote. It's our good friend Jim Oberweis saying that he never declined the chance to debate. This is when he was being accused of with Truex, which I really liked because it's worse than what he was accused of. Rather than say that he turned down the opportunity, he's saying, I wasn't running my own campaign, which is a classic Jim Oberweis line.
Governor Chris Christie was in town for a couple events this week, and I saw him with Rodney Davis at the Fairmont, and he said, you people in Illinois make New Jersey blush with the corruption and the cronyism. So I thought that was interesting in light of some of the stories we've seen on IDOT and other things.
And mine is about a story that's even bigger than the debate about the debates, which is the Jackie Robinson West baseball team. Marquise Jackson was asked specifically, why are you such a phenomenon? And he nailed one of the reasons, which is, he says, because we're African-American boys from the South Side. The South Side is not just about bad things. Something big can come from the South Side of Chicago. As a former South Sider, I appreciated that.
Mine is going to go back to Bruce Rauner and Karen Lewis. Bruce Rauner did the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge.
Yeah.
And he challenged Karen Lewis. Her response was, I will do it if Bruce Rauner fills the bucket with $30 million in cash, and then we give it to the children. I don't know how that plays out with ALS. So,
yeah.
Thank you very much for joining us this week. Thank you to our panel, and we will see you next week on Off Message.